He's been clowned. Hey, he's been clowned.
Too much shit going on in the world.
He's been clowned.
They cloning people.
Hey, he's
North
been
Korea
clowned.
about to blow us off the map.
He's been clowned.
Russia sneaking over here and shit.
He's been clowned.
Too much shit going on in the world.
He's been clowned.
They cloning people.
He's been clowned.
North Korea about to blow us off the map.
He's been clowned.
Black people still ain't equal.
He's been clowned.
They having Klan rallies, neo-Nazis.
He's been clowned.
The world ain't equal no more.
He's been clowned.
You can't go to the motherfucking
He's been
military.
clowned.
They've been cloning people.
He's been clowned.
Man, this shit getting scary.
He's
Hey,
been
I
clowned.
turned the shit on
He's
CNN.
been clowned.
North Korea got a missile.
He's been clowned.
People leaking information.
He's been clowned.
Somebody blow the whistle.
Love.
I'm watching Anderson Cooper. And then
And so with that, when David left out of that office, David called me. When David called me and told me everything that they said to him in the executive office, David told me everything from A to Z. And what David told me, it caused me to get a headache. And if I had been in that room, and it would have scared the hell out of me, because it, in fact, scared the hell out of David Chappelle. And David told me, when upon talking to me, he said, "Cuz, I got to go." And I said, "You got to go?" He said, "Yes, I got to get out of here." I said, "Well, David, out of here where?" He said, "I'm going to Africa." I said, "Well, David, you're going to Africa?" He said, "I got to get my head clear. There's things." He said, I just have to have my own peace of mind. And I said, "What about Elaine, David?" He said, "Well, I'll deal with Elaine. I'll call Elaine later." He said, "But right now I got to go." And I found out later the only person that David had told of going to Africa was me, his brother William, and I think there was a possibility that it was Neil Brennan. I said, "David, you go and do what you have to do." And I said, "But let me know when you get back in town." Some of you ask, why did he go to Africa? Because David was a practicing Muslim. And David went to Africa because he knew his fate was over there, his faith. And he knew that practicing Muslims was over there, and they would guide him or steer him in the right direction. His sister was and is today a practicing Muslim. Now, I want to remind you that when David went to Africa, where he was going, no one knew him, because David told me on the telephone, he said, "Now, cuz, where I'm going," he said, "where I'm going, no one knows me." He said, I hope they don't, cuz. I hope they don't. He said, "But I'm going there because I realize and I understand that there are Muslims over there." He said, "But I don't know them and they don't know me." And so I said, well, David, go on and do what you have to do. I said, "Just let me know when you get back." So that's what David did. He went on, and while David was away, I received phone calls. And I don't know whether David's brother William received any phone calls, because David's brother William, him and I, we were not as close. But I know I received phone calls asking, "Have you seen David? Do you know where David is?" And I knew where David was, but I could not tell anyone, because I told David during our conversation that I would never tell anyone unless he told me to tell them. And I knew that after what David had told me about the meeting with the executives, that I felt really good that David got the hell away. When David got ready to come back, David called me and said, "Cuz, I'm back in town." Well, he let his wife know, and everything was fine there. When he called me, he told me, he said, "I'm out of the entertainment world. I don't want to do comedy on television anymore." He said, I'm finished with all of that. I'm finished. I said, "Dave, are you sure?" He said, "Yeah, I'm done. I'm done with being on television, doing comedy." He said, "What I want to go back to is doing comedy at the little local comedy places." And I said, "Well, David, are you sure that's what you are?" He said, "Yeah, because he said, I have enough money to take care of my family and my farm and my mother and people in my family." He said, "But I just don't want to do any comedy on television." He said, I'm done." Anyway, while talking to David, it gave me a sense of hope. that David was going to be all right because he was finished with the this Chappelle show, the comedy show on television, and then he wasn't going to do any more appearance on any other show, and so it gave me a sense of relief for him. Okay, but they found out somehow that David was back in town and he was doing comedy at these little local comedy clubs and things like that. First, David went to the inside the actor's studio. He was asked to come and be on the show with the host there. And, David was fine. He went on the show and the questions was asked to him, why did he go to Africa and what went down? And I remember that David told exactly, the same thing that I'm telling you now, and that how, this whole thing was kind of shaking, and he didn't want no parts of it. And he told about Martin Lawrence.
When Martin Lawrence was in that chair, we talked about Blue Streak.
I love that dude.
He played a role in your life, I believe. How do you feel about him as a person, as an artist?
Martin Lawrence is the guy that showed everybody you can make it from D.C. to Hollywood. And I had a personal stake in his success. Every time he did something, it made me feel inspired and really good. And he was always real nice to me. He'd sit me down, what's going on with you, baby boy? What? We'd talk about comedy, whatever. And, when we did Blue Streak, we were promoting it, and Martin had a stroke. He almost died. And then after that, I saw him, and I was like, oh, my God, Martin, are you okay? And he said, I got the best sleep I ever got in my life. That's how tough he is. So let me ask you this. What is happening in Hollywood that a guy that tough will be on the street waving a gun, screaming, they are trying to kill me?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Martin Lawrence, they did the same thing to him too. But Martin Lawrence, and no one today, we have not seen Martin Lawrence. No one knows where Martin Lawrence is. Because you know why? Martin Lawrence is dead. I mean, body, soul, spirit, dead. If you ever see a Martin Lawrence come back on the scene, it's because that Martin Lawrence, before they killed him, they made a clone of Martin Lawrence, and they have that clone in waiting. Waiting for what? I don't know. And but no one has seen Martin Lawrence. No one knows anything about Martin Lawrence anymore. But if you ever, and I say to you all who all are listening, if you see Martin Lawrence, then you know that he's a clone. Just wanted to share that with you. But Dave Chappelle went on stage with and was in the audience. It was a group of young people there who were interested in becoming comedians or becoming actors or what have you. And Dave went there to to tell them about the business, about the Illuminati, because David felt that what they had said to him in the executive office, he wanted people to know what was going on, just as Martin Lawrence wanted people to know, just as Britney Spears wanted people to know. So that's what David did. David wanted people to know what they were doing to him and what they were all about. So this is what he said on this stage. So he told them,
why does Mariah Carey make a $100 million deal and take her clothes off on TRL? A weak person cannot get to sit here and talk to you. Ain't no weak people talking to you. So what is happening in Hollywood? Nobody knows. The worst thing to call somebody is crazy, is dismissive. I don't understand this person, so they're crazy. That's bullshit. These people are not crazy. They're strong people. Maybe the environment is a little sick. Oh, I'm dropping dimes tonight.
Can you see a time in your life ever when you won't be doing stand-up?
This past year, I did the least stand-up I've done since I started. 'Cause I was freaked out, man, with the fame thing and being called crazy and drug addict and all these things. Scared me. You know, being treated that way. Like I'm not a person anymore. You say this shit about me in front of my children, and you know, who the f*** do these people think they are? And they don't know what happened. You know, I have not spoken about what would make a person walk off the set of a successful show and go to Africa. But again, people don't understand it, so they call me crazy, and I don't like that.
What should they understand, Dave?
What should they understand? Well, I did 2 seasons, and it was very easy. Not very easy, but I didn't go to Africa. And then suddenly when I'm getting paid what they said was $50 million, I can't do it anymore. Nobody knows. Nobody remembers that I walked away from the show twice last season. Nobody asked about that. You know, in one of these magazines, Newsweek. It's a very credible magazine. And they're saying, you know, maybe I smoke crack, and it was all innuendo. And the magazine as credible as Newsweek, I was very surprised that this was happening. And then I got to make some real choices, man. Is that what I want for myself? Did I get too big? Because I like people. I like entertaining. And the higher up I go, for some reason, the less happy I am. You know, is it going to get to the point where I'm doing a striptease on TRL or waving a gun on the street, saying they're trying to kill me? No, I'm not going to let it get to that point. I'm going to go to Africa. I didn't even know they were saying those things about me. Then I call home, and people be like, oh, my God, are you all right? Yeah, chill, I'm in Africa, baby. What's going on? And then I got a call from a journalist that had been working on a story, and he was like, yeah, rumor mill's going on about you. Just want to clear a few things up. And I'm like, yeah, what's going on? Okay, do you smoke crack? I said, what? Do you smoke crack? Did you graduate from high school? I mean, it was all these crazy questions. And I thought about never coming back. I said, this place is crazy. Like, I'm that dude. I just thought about all the things that celebrities go through and what celebrities become in our culture. You know, if you Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston and your marriage is breaking up, that's an awful thing. But to see that speculation in people gotta sting a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh my God, I'm one of those people. That's a small club, man. That's a weird place to be. Ain't really no going back. You can't get unfamous. You can get infamous. Right. But you can't get unfamous.
Right.
So I got scared. I'm not going to lie, y'all, I was scared to death. I don't know how this whole Dave Chappelle thing is going to end, but I feel like I'm going to be some kind of parable by either what you're supposed to do or what you're not supposed to. So I'm going to be something. I'm either going to be a legend or just that tragic f***ing story, but I'm going full throttle. I'm going all the way. I'm eager to find out how this will resolve itself.
Okay, and then the next person. And when I talked to David, I said, David, you should not go there. You should not go there. You should not go there. But David, he was so afraid that David wanted to expose the inner dark circle. He wanted to expose them. And so the next person who invited David on their show was Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey, and I told Dave, I said, Dave, please don't go there. He said, no, cuz I'm going to be all right. He said, but I just want to let people, I want to talk, cuz I want to talk. So I said, okay. So David went on that show. And now, and if you notice or not, when David was on that show, on Oprah Winfrey's show, Oprah was trying to coach him along and saying to him, but you did, you know, you were stressful, weren't you? And David would say, no, I mean, well, you know, anybody was under stress of what they said to me in that office, but she wanted David to admit things that were not true with David, that was not going on with David at that time.
I'm glad you're here. Everybody wants to know, why'd you walk away from $50 million?
Well, I wasn't walking away from the money.
Yeah.
I was walking away from the circumstances that were coming with the newfound plateau.
Yeah, okay.
When
you say you heard the stories, what do you mean? What stories?
I mean, you see before, look, Mariah Carey made a $100 million deal, and 3 months later, she's all of a sudden mysteriously crazy. Or Martin Lawrence punches through and he's waving a gun on the street screaming, "They're trying to kill me."
Yeah. Yeah, we hear those stories.
And it always happens around the time in their career where it seems as though they're crossing over the next plateau.
Yeah. Would you say you lost your mind, sort of?
No.
No.
Not exactly.
Okay.
I wasn't crazy, but it's incredibly stressful.
Yeah.
And I felt like in a lot of instances, I was deliberately being put through stress because, you know, when you're a guy that generates money,
Yeah.
people have a vested interest in controlling you.
Yeah. Were they trying to control you? Because, you know, I read the Time magazine article and they were quoted as saying you had extreme creative control and that you really ran your own show.
Yeah, okay, but Oprah, I did 2 very successful seasons before that. So why all of a sudden on the 3rd time am I in Africa by myself? Like, what's happening? I don't want black people to be disappointed in me for putting that out there.
No, you didn't want to be disappointed in yourself.
You know what, Oprah? You're right.
Yeah. I still haven't gotten to why you just disappeared. So you had that moment, the guy's laughing too much. Was that the tipping point for you? Was that the straw?
That was the first tipping point.
Okay.
And then they put in the paper that I had pneumonia, or God knows what. It was walking pneumonia, because I was walking all over the place. I was relaxing. And then after that, I was coming back to the show, and then they were like, well, Dave, you know, you should just back up the pneumonia story. And I was like, you know, that was your thing. I'm not backing up a pneumonia story. And then the next day it was in the paper that I had writer's block. Then I knew something was getting ready to get stressful because I hadn't even started writing. I was on the schedule to write. So I was like, what's going on? Are they going to...
So these are your people trying to
manipulate me. Sounds like somebody's trying to put young Dave in a compromising position. So it was getting ridiculous. And I knew I was going to leave, so I got ahead of schedule, and I bounced. And I didn't tell anybody where I was going. The whole time, they're trying to convince me I'm insane. They were trying to get me to take psychotic medication. Yeah. Like I'm sitting around, you know, I was stressed out, but the people that were telling me I was insane, I believe that they knew what was going on. So this was troublesome.
Yeah.
I said, I'm not taking this medicine, man, because I know these people be trying to control you or maybe discredit you. I was afraid, like, you know.
But you were stressed out. That's why.
There's no question.
Yeah.
But it's very stressful for someone to constantly walk behind you and say, you're insane. Oh, hey, how about this? I showed up to work the first week, and where my office used to be, they built a wall there.
Why?
I didn't know why. But it came out later that they were like, well, they said you wanted it. I don't want to be walled up at the office. I like hanging out and talking. You know, and there's some quote that someone had told me that says, success takes you where character cannot sustain you.
Wow, that's a good quote.
Yeah, I don't care who you think you are or how you think you do it. You cannot imagine what celebrities go through as far as how your integrity and your self-image and all these things.
Okay, this is a theory that I've always had, and I've discussed this with other people. The idea that if you don't know who you are when this big thing hits, when the big stuff comes, if you don't know who you are and can't stand in the center of yourself, then you end up confused and feeling thwarted and feeling diffused in many directions because everybody is pulling on you. Would you say that that was part of your issue, trying to find the center for yourself?
Absolutely.
When you are suddenly given a $50 million contract when you've been making I don't know what before, that is a lot to orchestrate, to handle, and a lot for other people to figure out.
Oh, in that sense, it was like, all right, you're the CEO of a $50 million company. Good luck.
Yeah, yeah. Now you figure it out.
Right.
But you've worked your whole life for it. You wanted it. You've, struggled to get it. Sacrificed, rejected many times, told that things wouldn't work, and then all of a sudden, you're the genius, and we're going to give you $50 million. And that was too much for you to handle?
No. That's the thing that I always read that makes me mad. No. It was the fame. Couldn't stand the fame.
Yeah.
I love being famous.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. When I came out here and everybody was like, hooray, I was like, I'm back on TV.
Okay, so that's clear. It's not the fame, it's what?
It's the way the people around you position themselves around you to get in your pockets and in your mind.
Yeah. So did you go to a psychiatric hospital?
In South Africa?
Yeah.
Who? Huh? Oh, yeah, that's right. I was so...
I'm only asking because I need to ask.
I gotta get people thinking, all right, who goes from America to Africa for medical attention?
So true.
And then another thing, if you take notice or not, when Oprah was talking, David had his hand over his mouth and like he was saying to himself, Oprah, I know what you're trying to do. I know what you're trying to do. And so, but David was fearful of being on the Oprah Winfrey show. And not only with the appearance that he was making, the gestures, this sort of thing, and the looking around, but when David left the Oprah Winfrey show, I got a phone call. And who was the phone call? None other than David Chappelle. And he told me some things that he speculated of Oprah Winfrey. And I said, David, I told you not to go on that show. I told you not to go on that show. Because Oprah is already into that dark circle. Oprah is... Oprah was the one that ushered Obama into office. And that's one of the reasons why they wanted David to quit on the blacks, because Oprah ushered him in. Oprah was in favor of Obama getting into office. Oprah was behind Obama, on the side of Obama, and as I might as well say, in front of Obama. She got him into office. And I said, David, I told you not to go on that show. He said, well, I'm done. I'm done. Now, David finally, once and for all, he got to know where Oprah Winfrey was coming from. David didn't trust Oprah Winfrey, and he was glad that the show was over with. And David told me that when he left Oprah Winfrey, he had to keep looking over his shoulder because he didn't trust Oprah. And well, nobody that, any of us, we know that Oprah is one of the queen bees, dark bees of the Illuminati. David was, doing his comedy in the local comedy clubs, but then he got a phone call again. And he said, called me and told me, he said, cuz they called me again. I said, who called you again? He said, the executives. And he said, they want to talk to me one more time. They're thinking about the possibility of me doing the Chappelle show and doing it the way that I want to do it. I want to be, he said, because the only reason why I told them when I talked to them the last time that the only way I would do the Chappelle show again would be if I did it my way. And it would be set up on my terms. And so I received a phone call and they want to talk to me about it. Well, my antennas went up. I said, David, now you be careful now, because they could be saying that. He said, no, I really think they're serious this time, cuz. He said, because made it definite with them that the only way that he said, I told it on Oprah Winfrey show too, that the only way that I would do the Chappelle show again, it would have to be on my terms, my way, and and the money that I make, even if it wasn't $50 million, it would have to go to the people. and but it had to be on my terms. So I said, okay, David. I said, well, do you trust him? David said, yeah. David said, well, yeah, I think I can trust him this time. So I said, well, David, whatever the situation is, please give me a call. He said, you know that's right, cuz. And so David left. We hung up. I should say we hung up. I have not heard from David, not even today. I have not heard from David. Now, what I think is this, that Neil Brennan is a question mark, 100%. A question mark. I believe that David went there and they discussed once again about the 50 million. And I believe Neil Brennan was somewhere in that office. And then they told, I'm believing that they told David that they wanted him to see something. Just like they did Bernie Mac. Oh, yes, indeed. They took Bernie, let me stop on David for a few minutes. But they showed Bernie Mac the cloning lab. And they showed Bernie Mac the cloning lab. And he went down and he saw how people were being cloned. And when Bernie Mac came back and told Steve Harvey and D.L. Hughley and a few others, and that he saw the cloning lab and that something had to be done to stop that foolishness of what they were doing. Well, Steve Harvey and D.L. Hughley went back and told the top brass of the Illuminati, the dark circle, in the dark circle, and what they did, they killed him. Okay, so now let's go back to David Chappelle. I'm truly believing that they told David they had something they wanted him to see. And they took David to the underground cloning lab. And when they took David down there, I'm believing that before they took David down there, they promised David that they would go along with his deal, with David's deal, to get him to sign the contract. And I'm believing that David, thinking that he would get back on the Chappelle show, working with Comedy Central, that everything was going to be all right. And I'm believing that David signed that contract thinking that. And when he signed that contract, they wanted David to go and look at something else. It could have been maybe telling him that maybe it was a new studio or something of some kind or what have you. But they got David after signing the contract. And then once he signed the contract, they took him someplace else. And the place that they took him to was to the underground lab. And when they got him down there, they cloned David. And when they clone a person, and I want you to do your research, cloning today only takes a couple, maybe to several hours to be cloned. Well, this is what I strongly believe they did to David. They took him to this underground lab. And what they did is they smiling in his face and just going along with David so that David would not yield up or fight or this sort of thing. And they cloned him. And once they cloned David Chappelle, then they killed David Chappelle. Okay, and once they killed David Chappelle, that was it. And once they did this, then they had full control of this new Dave Chappelle. They had to clone him. And then once they cloned him, this is what I'm thinking too, that when they cloned him, then they got the clone to sign David's name for not only 50 million, but the 60 million as well. Well, let me say this. I had not heard from David when he was supposed to have met with the executives the second time, and Dave promised me and assured me he would call me to let me know the outcome. I have not heard from David since. When I turned my television on, and I saw this man there on some kind of show, and he had one pants leg rolled all the way down, and the other one rolled all the way up, and they said this was Dave Chappelle. I said, Dave, who? And I went to the television, and I looked, and I said, hell no, that ain't no Dave Chappelle, or no Dave Chappelle, no, hell no. And so I got on the cell phone, and I called my cousin David. And I called, the phone rang, and it rang, and it rang. I think it was maybe on the fourth or fifth ring that someone picked up the telephone and said, hello. I said, yeah, let me speak to David. And the person on the other end said, who are you? I said, I'm David Chappelle's cousin. And the phone clicked.
Now, what's so interesting about this video that you just heard from Dave Chappelle's cousin, if you actually try to search this on YouTube, nothing comes up. You know, this is one of these videos where you have to actually change the filter on your own and go to upload date just to find what you're looking for. But the natural algorithm is hiding that video, right? But more interesting, right? When you type in Dave Chappelle's cousin, and the third video down has a video from the 85 South show saying he's been cloned, which was the intro that you heard. Now, I question why this video was even in the algorithm to begin with, because Dave Chappelle is nowhere in this video whatsoever. The video tags, the description, the title, even in the actual video, if you actually listen to it, Dave Chappelle's name was not dropped one time. So why, when you search Dave Chappelle's cousin, you still get this video? That's them giving you a hint. That's them giving you a subtle hint. And in the song where DC Young Fly and them, they freestyling, and he's saying, "He's been cloned. He's been cloned." They letting you know. They letting you know. But let's continue, because you know we got to get to the Gematria with this, right? And I think I like this style. Y'all let me know if y'all like this style with me giving y'all the video evidence first and then bringing in the Gematria afterwards. I feel like it ties it in perfectly. It shows how much more it makes sense when I show the video evidence first and then tie in the Gematria afterwards. So Chappelle went on a spiritual retreat, right? Quote unquote, that's what they called it, in South Africa. Now, spiritual retreat and David Kyrie Weber Chappelle, his whole name, equals 220, along with spiritual retreat, forwards and backwards. Now, if you are watching, if you are new to Gematria, what this is the practice of turning letters into numbers. This has come into play by the Kabbalah, right? The Cabal. Ever since the English language came into play, along with the Gregorian calendar, the words that we speak are not only spells, but they're also coded. So this code has been seen in the mainstream media, non-stop politics. As you can see, what happens with these celebrities, everything goes by this specific code, right? And this has been altered by man. This is something that has been manufactured by man. Now, spiritual retreat, David Kyrie Weber Chappelle equals 220. Now, once again, his full name also syncs up with blood sacrifice. And that's what I believe happened. Not only his cousin also believes that happened. That's what happened, right? Blood sacrifice, we get 121. Now, how these ciphers are calculated. Now, English ordinal, what you see in the green, that's the original English language. A is 1, Z is 26. So you're adding up these letters with their corresponding numerical value. Now, full reduction is that same thing, A through 26. The only difference is you're reducing the double digits to single digits. Reason being, Pythagoras, the Greek god of mathematics, believed that the only true numbers were 1 through 9. So once you get to the 9th letter of the alphabet, you get to 10. 10 is now 1. 1 plus 0 equals 1. And that's how you get these ciphers right here. So this explains the forwards. You know what forwards is, so backwards is the same concept, but just the English ordinal, the English language backwards. So it's that same concept, and that's how these letters and these words equal these specific numbers in specific ciphers. So pay attention to these ciphers that are being used. South Africa, where Dave Chappelle ended up going. Now, I don't think that Dave Chappelle died when he went to South Africa, right? But that's just interesting that it ties in with the rest of the story, right? Because Dave Chappelle, when he came back from Africa, he went on the actor studio and he went on Oprah. That was the real Dave. When Dave was on Oprah and he was on actor studio, that was the real Dave. So he didn't die. He didn't die when he got to Africa. That ain't what happened. Right? But just to show you how this numerical code is followed by anybody who steps in Hollywood, David Kyrie Robert Chappelle equals 1320, and it's synced right up with the show that they gave him, Chappelle Show, 1320 in Jewish. So that just goes to show you, whoever steps in this Hollywood realm, whether they know it or not, whether they are aware of it, this numerical code is still being followed. EW has learned from a source. So this was an article that I had to dig. I had to go on Google and filter back to the year 2005 to 2006 to find a specific date on when Dave Chappelle went to Africa. Right, so it says EW has learned from a source close to the show that on April 28th, the comedian flew from Newark Airport to South Africa to check himself into a mental health facility. Right, now let's remember that date, right? April 28th. And let's remember the fact that they told you he went to go to a mental health facility. When you just heard in the video prior, when Oprah asked him, did you go to a mental health facility? He said, come on now, use your brain. Why would I go from America to South Africa to go to a mental health facility when it was a mental health facility where he was at the airport in Newark, in New Jersey? He could have checked in right there. What was so special about South Africa? But it's a reason behind why they told you a mental health facility. But we're going to get to that in a minute. Now, April 28th, right? The day that Dave disappeared to Africa. It's interesting that the date was 4/28, and Dave Chappelle's birthday is 8/24, right? It's like that same date backwards, right? 4/28, 8/24. And it's also interesting that he disappeared on the 248th day of his age. So you see how you can unscramble these same numbers? It's a little weird. On Friday, February 3rd, he appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show and said he still wants to do his show. I don't want the money. I don't want the drama. I just want to do my show again. Now, he was marked when he went on the Oprah Winfrey Show. I'm going to just go ahead and say it. When he went on the Oprah Winfrey Show after that, and that's why his cousin begged him not to go. Because after he went on that show and said what he said, he was marked. Right? And they lined him up. They lined him right up with Oprah. Right? This was planned. It was planned for this to happen. 9 months and 7 days after his disappearance was his appearance on the Oprah Winfrey Show, right? 97, just like Oprah Gail Winfrey, equals 97 in full reduction. Now, what also equals 97? Death equals 97. Like I said, he was marked for death when he showed up on the Oprah Winfrey Show. Oprah is a known witch in this industry, right? She's high up. She's a gatekeeper in Hollywood. She's nothing on the grand scheme of the pyramid. If we're talking about the elite, she's nothing, right? But in this Hollywood realm, she's a gatekeeper and she's a witch, and she's a powerful witch. And they use her to cast spells on people, and Dave Chappelle was one of them. Right? What also equals death is 118. Now, it's something very metaphysical that was going on in Dave Chappelle's life at the time that he disappeared. Now, I do believe that it is an organic side to Gematria, and this is what I believe occurred. Now, Dave Chappelle disappeared on the 118th day of the year, right? That's the day he went to Africa, April 28th, 2005, which happened to be the 118th day of the year. Now, he didn't die this day. I don't believe he died this day, but this was the energy that was following him, right? Because there's also physical explanations for these things that happen, and there's also metaphysical, spiritual things that are going on when these things are happening. So although I don't think he died this day, but death was following him. What also equals 118? Clone. Clone equals 118. Like the clone David. Also with the number 118, Dave Chappelle went to Africa 118 days before his upcoming birthday. So like I said, that number 118 was following him. It was in the air. Now, along with 118, the day that he went to Africa left 247 days in the year. Just like how he went to Africa 247 days after his 31st birthday. So like I said, some of these things are metaphysical. Everything about Gematria isn't manufactured. I know I said it earlier that it's manufactured by men. I meant that the use of Gematria itself, right, has come into play by men, but it's also organics. It's an organic side to numerology itself, right? But we can see that death started to follow Dave as he started maneuvering and he started getting deeper and deeper into this industry. He started seeing what was really going on. He started to say no to certain things. He started backing up and he left. Came back, still was saying no, stood his ground, started speaking out, exposing things, and they set him up. They set him up. Right? Now here's the kicker. Now if we break this down, Dave went to Africa 3 months, 3 weeks, funny, right? 33. 3 months, 3 weeks, and 6 days before his upcoming birthday, 3/36. He went to Africa. Well, his birthday was 3 months, 3 weeks, and 6 days before they say he went to that mental health facility, 3/36. Just like mental health facility equals 3/36. Like I said, it was a reason why they told you that. Now, I believe that when Dave went to Africa, I believe that's when he was cloned. Contrary to what the cousin said, I know what she said. She's saying what she believes. Now I'm saying what I believe. I believe that when he went to Africa, I don't think he knows about this. You know, I don't know what kind of state they put these people in, like a sedated type of state. I'm not sure how the cloning process goes because I've never been there. But I believe that when Dave went to Africa and they told you he went to that mental health facility, I believe that's when he was cloned. Right? Bottom line though, we both believe that he's been cloned, bottom line. Right? But this is just what I believe. Right? Now B.O.B. has also come out speaking about the cloning center, And he says every time you see a celebrity, quote unquote, randomly lose their mind, they went to the cloning center. And that's the narrative that they were pushing about Dave Chappelle, was that he lost his mind, he was going crazy. That's the narrative that Oprah Winfrey was trying to paint that whole interview, that he went crazy, and that's why he left to go to Africa without telling his family. Right? They also say when a celebrity in great health suddenly suffers a stroke, heart attack, aneurysm, although that didn't pertain to Dave, but that's just saying that he was in great health, great standing. Why is he all of a sudden just going to a mental health facility? That makes no sense. So I believe when he went to Africa, that's what happened to him. Now, once again, he disappeared to Africa 16 weeks and 6 days before his birthday. Just like Oprah Winfrey equals 166. Now, it's a strong connection between Dave Chappelle and Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Gail Winfrey herself, right, has the 83 in her name along with murder. This is why they lined her up. This is why they aligned her with Dave Chappelle, and Dave Chappelle was marked for death after that appearance on the Oprah Winfrey Show. Even Oprah Gail Winfrey, her whole name equals 187, which defines the crime of murder, right? That's the police code for murder, 187. So murder, I'm not gonna say it follows her, but that's the energy, right, that is created around her. And especially with her being such a high-ranking witch / gatekeeper in Hollywood. Right? The Oprah Winfrey Show and Blood Sacrifice both have the same numerology as well. So once again, this is why they lined him up to go on her show. She set him up. And she tried to catch him slipping. The whole time she wanted to get him to say, yeah, I guess I was kind of crazy. So Hollywood could close the chapter on Dave and they could run off with the narrative. But Dave wasn't backing down. He said, no, I'm not crazy. It's the motherfuckers, it's y'all that know exactly what's going on and y'all trying to paint this picture. So Dave didn't back down, so they said, okay, we just gonna close the chapter like this then. We ain't gonna tell the people what happened to him, but we gotta get rid of Dave. Cause he talking too much. He telling people too much. So yeah, we not gonna say nothing about it, but yeah, he's out of here. The Dave that you know is no more. Now, once again, y'all remember when I told you his birthday was 3 months, 3 weeks, and 6 days before he disappeared to Africa. 336, just like he went to the mental health facility, which equals 36. Now, what's interesting, Oprah Winfrey was born with 336 days left in the year. Like I said, this is why they align the two. He was marked after he went on that show. I wish he would have never went. Just like the cousin said. She begged and begged and begged. Please do not go on Oprah Winfrey. But hey, respect to Dave, man. He wanted to let people know what was going on a big platform as much as Oprah's, and that's why he took the risk. He knew what was at stake. That's why he spoke. He chose his words very wisely. But he obviously said enough to where he had to go. He had to sit in the back seat. But respect to Dave, man, for for being fearless, regardless of the consequences. Hats off to anybody that decides to speak out about this evil industry. Right? Once again, Oprah was strongly connected to this whole situation. Even if we take Oprah Winfrey's birthday to the day that Dave Chappelle disappeared to Africa, we get a span of 89 days, just like Winfrey equals 89. And it's interesting that later on in the years, Oprah Winfrey's father, Vernon, would later pass away at the age of 89. Her family is cursed due to her, or I don't know what, generational curses doesn't just mean like being poor and things of that nature, or a certain mind state of your family that you're trying to break, traditional values. It could also be maybe she comes from a long line of witches before her. You never know what type of entities these families are tied to behind closed doors. But we can see that her father, and if you watch my prior video on Oprah Winfrey, you can see that both of her parents were taken out by the numbers as well in connection to Oprah Winfrey. Like I said, that murder number 187 and that murder number 83 is what creates that energy around Oprah. It doesn't matter how old these people are, they will die in connection to Oprah Winfrey. And that is all we have for this video. I hope y'all like the way I edited it. Hopefully the beginning wasn't too long. I tried to, I watched every interview in its entirety because I wanted to grab the important parts of each of his interviews to make this all make sense, because once I bring the numbers in, it's all gonna make more sense. So y'all let me know if y'all like that format. I appreciate y'all for the support, all the love, and I'm out.